We came back in. No one else had been in that room, and the entity had wrote to us. So we knew it wasn't one of us physically doing it.
What would the conversation be like?
The first thing the entity wrote on the mirror upstairs was, "Talk to me." And he warned us if we didn't talk to him, there would be consequences to pay.
Why do you think the entity followed you? Who did the entity attach itself to?
My mother-in-law. It was attached to my mother-in-law. It made her life a living hell. It's when we moved up to the new house, that's when it actually started to focus on my mother-in-law. It did horrible things to her. It took away her clothing. It would destroy, like she'd go to put clothes on, and it'd be ripped apart or cut up. She'd go to get shoes. There would only be one shoe because they had taken one shoe. If she carried money in her wallet, it would destroy the money in her wallet. Then it even got worse. It got so that she'd go to sit down in a chair, and the entity would put knives coming through the chair so that if she sat down, she'd sit on a knife. Or when she'd try to go to bed at night, the entity would put knives in the pillow so that she'd be stabbed if she laid down. It got to the point where we had to go in and to check where she was going to sit down or lay down before she could even relax. That's how bad it got.
Was anyone from the clergy asked to come in?
Yes, we had a priest come in. He came in front door. My mother-in-law called him. She was Catholic. She called him to bless the house. He came in, walked in the front door, blessed the house from the front foyer, the little hallway, and refused to go in any other part of the house. And when my mother-in-law tried to explain to him, we needed help, he said he couldn't help us. He said he couldn't help us. And then he said to me, when ladies get this age, they get a little crazy. And he almost ran out of the house, got in his car, and drove away.
Why do you think the entity attached itself to your mother-in-law?
I can tell you what the entity told me.
Okay.
It got to the point where it was so bad in the house. One of us had to kind of I don't want to say put your foot down to a demon because you can't do that, but you had to almost stand up to him because he was in complete control of our lives. We got to the point where we were isolated from people. If we tried to go to a restaurant, the entity would make his presence known. We'd come home and there'd be name tags from the waitress where we just were served on the kitchen table, or implements from the restaurant. If we tried to go to a friend's house, he would put us in embarrassing situations. He would take things. He took one gentleman's wallet and brought it to our house. Well, we had just visited those people. How could we tell them we had his wallet? So it got to the point where we just stayed away from people. We couldn't invite them to the house because he was writing on the wall. He destroyed the house. He carved symbols into the walls. He burnt them into the walls, painted them on the walls, cut them in the carpet. It was an everyday occurrence, and every day we were trying to fix what he had destroyed.
What kind of symbols?
So he isolated us.
What kind of symbols?
He did all kinds of symbols. What his symbol was a triangle, and then at the bottom of a triangle with a tail. And that was his symbol. He would put that everywhere, on walls, everywhere. Even on our car, he scratched it into the side of the car.
Why do you think the entity attached itself to your mother-in-law?
Well, that's what I said. I went in and I said to the entity, I would talk to the entity. My father-in-law was indifferent to it. He would just kind of stay away.
Yeah.
My husband was very frightened of the entity. My mother-in-law was very frightened. I was frightened, but somebody had to stand up to it. So I went in and said, Mr. Entity, you're not going to hurt my husband. You're not going to hurt, I had a child. You're not going to hurt my child, and you're not going to hurt my mother-in-law. And the entity wrote back to me, I will not touch your husband. I will not touch your child. But Lee, that was my mother-in-law's name, belongs to me. So I asked him, why does she belong to you? And he told me that long ago in a past life, she was supposed to be sacrificed. She was promised to him in a sacrifice, and it didn't come to be. And now he came and he said he wanted her now. So that's what he explained to me.
While these paranormal investigators were at your house working on this case, did they witness any paranormal activity?
A couple of them did. One had eggs thrown at them. One came, different people came, some that would practice different types of magic, trying to force it out of our house. One gentleman came and he was doing some rituals where he would put eggs, and the entity picked up the eggs and threw them at the gentleman. And another lady came, was walking through the house with sage, trying to smoke with sage, and the entity turned her sage, where she was burning it, onto her arm and burned her. A couple of people had things thrown at them, but no one ever actually witnessed the writing. They saw the writing, but no one ever witnessed it being done.
I understand that this haunting continued for 25 years?
No. It continued for actually 6 years. It happened 25 years ago. For 25 years, we've never said anything about it. When it finally left, we decided we would never speak of it. So for 25 years, we never said a word about it. And see, one of the problems was that investigators would come. They would say, now take notes, take pictures so people know what's going on. So we would do that. And then the next group would come, because that group couldn't get rid of it, and they would say, get rid of all your pictures, get rid of the notes, because you're acknowledging it and you're giving it power and you're keeping it here. So we'd throw everything away. Well, my husband he couldn't throw everything away. He had saved, like from every year, he saved bunches of pictures, and he put them in a box, which I didn't even know about. Well, when he passed away 2 years ago, I found the box in the closet of pictures. There's like 200-300 pictures of the entity writing and the things it had done. And that brought back all the memories, and I decided I really wanted to let people know what had happened.
But in these photos, is there any concrete evidence of the entity doing anything? Or are they just before and after?
The only concrete evidence I really have is the entity apported a spearhead. It's about a foot long. He apported it, and he demanded that my father-in-law use it on my mother-in-law for a blood ritual. And at the time, we took it to a museum to have it to see what it was. And it was the Museum of Natural History in L.A. And the gentleman told me it was a spearhead from the Belgian Congo area. He thought it was over 200 years old. And because of the way it was sharpened, it wasn't sharpened on the sides, but it was to a point, a dangerous point. He said this wasn't used for hunting, or it wasn't used for warfare. It was used probably for magical rituals. So I kept that. I put that away, and I kept that. So I still have that.
Fascinating. Stand by, Deborah. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation Deborah Moffitt is our special guest. We're talking about Deborah's haunting experience entitled A Deadly Haunting. All I can say is interesting, really interesting. www.adeadlyhaunting.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X-Zone Radio Show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365. Now you can dial in to listen to the X-Zone Radio Show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Deborah Moffitt is my guest this hour. X-Zone. We're talking about a deadly haunting, www.adeadlyhaunting.com. What was the results of the investigation into the paranormal activity that you and your family were subjected to?
The result, what they concluded?
Yes.
Each one came up with a different theory. They all agreed that there was a demon here, or some people called it a demon, some people called it an entity. Some people really didn't know what was going on. They knew it was happening, but they couldn't get rid of it, and they couldn't help us. We went to people all over the United States to try to get help. We had Dr. Evelyn Paglini, who was from Los Angeles area, who just passed away. She tried to help us, couldn't get rid of it. She got to the point where she said she wanted us to. She said it was a very high-level demon, and she said it would be to our advantage, because she actually thought it was going to kill my mother-in-law. She said it would be to our advantage to, instead of trying to get rid of it, to pay it homage, and that if we did that, then it wouldn't hurt us. But we wouldn't think of doing that, so we said no, so she couldn't help us. That was some of the things that they tried to get rid of it. We had Ed and Lorraine Warren come and try to get rid of it. They tried to have an exorcism here.
Right.
My father-in-law, who was not a very nice man. My father-in-law actually wanted the entity to kill my mother-in-law. That was part of the problem. One of the reasons we were told why we couldn't get rid of this entity is because someone here was giving it permission to stay.
Okay, so let me understand this for a second. You've got who told you that it was your father-in-law who wanted the entity to kill your mother-in-law?
First of all, Evelyn Paglini told us one of us here was keeping it here. And she said by doing some type of ritual magic, she decided that it was my father-in-law because he reacted a certain way. And then also the entity, we saw my father-in-law doing strange things. He would go into the bathroom and talk to the entity, and then he would erase the mirror. And then when he left, I would ask the entity, well, what was he doing in here? And he would tell me. He said, he wants me to kill Leah, and I want him to kill. The entity wanted my father-in-law to kill Lee, and my father-in-law wanted the entity to kill Lee.
So how do you know the entity was actually telling you the truth?
I don't.
So how can
I don't know if he was lying to me. I can just tell you what it wrote to me.
Well, all right, but let's get back to the fact where you're saying that your father-in-law you were told that your father-in-law actually wanted the entity to kill your mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. How do you know this is real? Like, if nobody that you've had come and investigate this paranormal phenomenon was not able to come up with a conclusive finding, or they could not get rid of this entity, how do you know that anything you've been told is the truth?
You don't. You just live from day to day. And what I think why it was the truth is because when my mother-in-law finally made my father-in-law leave the